Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about another book that Book Talk adored. This is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. This book was originally self-published and then was picked up by Tor and republished. This is a dark academia with fantastical elements about 6 people who are asked to be a part of a secret society because they all have very unique powers. They're asked to be part of sort of a fellowship program to learn about this secret society to maybe join it, and then eventually they learn that one of them must die. As I said, this has fantastical elements, so it has magic and also some magical creatures, but we don't spend a lot of time on those things. I struggle to tell you what we do spend a lot of time on here. This was one of the most disorienting reading experiences of my life. We're spending time mostly on having conversations that are sort of psychology based about things in this book rather than on the things themselves. It's mostly like conversations between the characters, which include the 6 people who are trying to compete to join the society, the caretaker, Atlas, and a guy named Dalton who works for the secret society. The secret society being the Alexandria Society, which Alexandria is in the Library of Alexandria, which is also a thing that we mostly just have conversations about. It sort of felt like watching Flavor of Love. Is it a competition? Technically, but it's mostly just us talking about the fact that we're competing and talking about who we're competing with. I feel similarly to this as I did about the last dark academia I read, which was Vita Nostra. Both books, I would say, are interesting and certainly in some capacities much smarter than I am, but I don't know that I enjoyed it, and it often felt strange to the point of being pretentious, which is often a critique of dark academia. The only dark academia I can say that I love is Babel by R.F. Kuang, and that also gets called pretentious. It just depends on who's reading it. I think if you're going to read the Atlas Six but you're unsure if it's going to be your thing, do yourself a favor and try doing the audiobook. It has narrators for all of the 6 in the Atlas Six that brought the characters out much more than one narrator trying to do all the parts could have. Or if I had just read the text, I had a better experience, I think, than I would have just reading the text because I did the audio. And I had an even better audiobook experience with this because I listened with my Raycon Everyday earbuds. If there is one Black Friday deal that you'll be glad you got in on, it is the one being run by Raycon on their Everyday earbuds. And they're actually doubling down on their value by offering my viewers up to 30% off site-wide. Raycon's Everyday earbuds come with active noise cancellation. This is a feature that is a must-have as a mom, personally. I don't know if you know this, but kids are loud. That feature can be hard to find at an accessible price point until now. Their ergonomic design is made to comfortably fit the widest range of ears, and optimized gel tips make for a cozy custom fit. They have a quick charge function and they charge inside of this case. 10 minutes of charging yields 90 minutes of battery. So I just pop them back in the case and they just charge inside of here. And the case has a protective case on the outside of it, which I love mine. They have so many cute styles. They don't just have active noise cancellation. If I do need to listen for my kids, like if I'm at the gym and I need to make sure that my kids are not acting foolish, I just turn on awareness mode and then I can hear both my kids and all the men grunting, lifting weights, and still hear my book. And if I want to change the function, I just tap my ear to change the settings easily no matter what I'm doing. And they come in weatherproof and or sweat resistant. These are my favorite headphones I have ever had. And you can get your audiobooking on and save big this Black Friday. Go to buyraycon.com/readswithrachel to get up to 30% off site-wide. Yes, site-wide. Everything on Raycon's website. When you go to buyraycon.com/readswithrachel or just click the link below, you will be glad that you started wearing these. Buy yourself a little audiobooking treat. And thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. Okay, let me give you the synopsis and then we will go through. This is going to be entirely spoilery. There is no way to talk about this book without being spoilery, unless you want to be as vague as the book was for most of the reading of it. The Alexandria Society, caretakers of lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity and the foremost secret society of magical academicians in the world. Those who earn a place among the Alexandrians will secure a life of wealth, power, and prestige beyond their wildest dreams, and each decade only the 6 most uniquely talented magicians are selected to be considered for initiation. Enter the latest round of 6, Libby Rhodes and Nico de Verona, unwilling halves of an unfathomable whole, who exert uncanny control over every element of physicality. Yeah, I did not understand their powers until like the end, and even now I'm not sure that I can explain them to you and give you all the details because I don't think I ever got them. And I think that might have been part of the point. I don't know. Reina Mori, a naturalist who can intuit the language of life itself. Plant magic. She does plant magic. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And in fact, the complication of it was very interesting, but we never expanded on it. She was so underutilized. I was shocked by her existence sometimes. I was like, oh yeah, Reina's there. Forgot about her. Parisa Kamali, a telepath who can traverse the depths of the subconscious, navigating worlds inside the human mind. Callum Nova, an empath easily mistaken for a manipulative illusionist who can influence the intimate workings of a person's inner self. I still cannot explain to you how his powers work. I don't really fully understand it. Finally, there is Tristan Kane, who can see through illusions to a new structure of reality, an ability so rare that neither he nor his peers can fully grasp its implications. I hated this man for most of the book just because he just felt so many opposites at the same time. Who I was picturing at first was like this nerdy dude who kind of got treated poorly, but then he sort of treated somebody else poorly until he slept with them. It's a little more complicated than that, but I didn't like him for most of the book. When the candidates are recruited by the mysterious Atlas Blakely, they are told that they will have 1 year to qualify for initiation, during which time they will be permitted preliminary access to the Society's archives and judged based on their contributions to the various subjects of impossibility, time and space, luck and thought, life and death. Yeah, I forgot we were doing that for most of the book. The archives sort of just get mentioned in passing. Most stuff here is getting mentioned in passing. 5, they are told, will be initiated. 1 will be eliminated. And then they find out that elimination actually means like, eliminated. The 6 potential initiates will fight to survive the next year of their lives if they can prove themselves to be the best among their rivals. Most of them will. Most of them. I don't even know where to start. I don't know what I thought this was going to be based on that synopsis. I think that I read, they'll fight, and I thought that we were going to have like battles, right? That definitely did not happen. They are charged with watching the house, the Alexandrian Society house. Nobody's there. It's just them. Except also Dalton, their teacher, sort of. Teacher's an odd way to put it. And then Atlas is sometimes there, the guy who is trying to get them to compete, right? The guy who brought them into the fold. I don't know what we were doing for most of the time. A lot of things got mentioned in passing. Like a lot of their we were in a class and we talked about luck, and Reina, the naturalist, the plant magic woman, who was sort of above it all. Like she was like, this is all very uninteresting to me, except access to the archives. I don't even know where this thought train is going. See, this is actually how I felt reading the book. It's so disorienting. I'm just going to have to give you my notes because I highlighted as I went through. I tandem read this. After I realized what we were doing after the first chapter, I said, oh, I'm going to have to tandem read this. Great! And I feel like I listened to this twice because I would listen to a chapter in an audiobook and then I'd have to go back through and tandem read and highlight the things that I wanted to make sure that I could tell you about, because otherwise it would be like I just tried to do, where I'm just losing my train of thought because it's so disorienting. Take a shot every time I say disorienting. Quick way to alcohol poisoning. I'm not really sure what I was supposed to like about this. I don't mean that in the derogatory. I'm being genuine here. I don't really know what my takeaway was supposed to be. Am I supposed to love the society? Because I don't really feel like I know much about it. Am I supposed to love the stakes? I don't really feel like I know what the stakes are. Am I supposed to feel like I'm on the edge of my seat? I did not feel like I was on the edge of my seat because I kept waiting for the plot to happen. And then I realized that the conversations were the plot, and conversations aren't really plot. I mean, that's not like a hard and fast rule, but I think it applies here. Now, I think that the way that the powers were described is very interesting, and when they would use them on each other was fascinating. Particularly Parisa and her ability to read minds is fascinating. She's very manipulative, and her and Callum are sort of seen as like similar to how Nico and Libby are two sides of the same coin. Parisa and Callum are sort of pitted against each other, but also two sides of the same coin, where she hates him, but I think she might hate him because he has more power than her, whereas she has to go a roundabout way to get people to do what she wants them to do, where she reads their thoughts and then she understands very detailed the inner workings of somebody's mind. It's more than just, they said, I like cats, and I heard I like cats. She sees like the intricacies and the fabric of what makes a person's thoughts, right? And I think that that's really fascinating. Whereas Callum can sort of go in there and manipulate things and get people to, do what he wants them to do. And Parisa has to do it the long way. She has to, see their thoughts and then try to do things on the outside to get them to do a certain thing, to behave the way she wants. She is described as like a sex worker in like her life before, how that's what she was doing beforehand. And she seduces both Dalton, who is the teacher, sort of. I wouldn't call him it's more, I don't really know how to describe Dalton to you. He does teach them things about the society and does like lead conversations in passing about theory on things like time and luck versus unluck. So she's seducing him to try to get more information about the society, as well as she does seduce and sort of strikes up like a friendship with Tristan Kane, who again, I just felt so annoyed by for so much of this book. I do think that his power is really interesting in that he can see through illusions, and then later you find out in the book that the way that he sees things is not how everybody else is seeing them. So he can't actually see the illusion. He can see that something has been illusioned. He can see, like, if you illusion yourself a boob job, which yes is a thing that certain characters in this book are mentioned to have done, he can see that your boobs have been illusioned. He can't actually see the illusioned version of your boobs. So he's seeing your boobs and seeing, like, I don't know, maybe a note that says, hey buddy, illusioned boobs coming your way. So I think that that's really interesting. And later when there's like a dead body and it's somebody that they know, he's like, that's not so-and-so. We'll get there later. And he knows this because it's an illusion, but he's seeing like tells that everybody else is not seeing. They are seeing what they think, full stop, is a dead body. But this is because people don't really understand what it is that Tristan can do. He's very unique. But then at one point I felt like they told him he wasn't unique, and I just got confused by his character. Like, I felt like I knew who he was in his first chapter, and then he has this conversation with Atlas, and I'm like, is Tristan special or is Tristan not special? And then after like the 5th conversation about Tristan's powers, I was like, I actually don't care to hear anymore. I don't care. Can we just do some stuff? Can we get to like them battling it out, which again, never happened. What they are tasked with doing is warding the house to keep out anything that isn't the society. And they all take part in this in different ways, but again, this is mostly in passing. And part of who they are trying to keep out is the Forum, who is like a competing entity to the Alexandrian Society. And people from the Forum come and talk to them, and they're like, well, the Alexandrian Society is super fucking classist. And I'm like, yes, I can see that, but I have a sneaking suspicion we're not gonna have any conversation about this afterwards. And we didn't. It's not like the Forum really offers up anything, because you also don't really know what the Forum is doing. I don't really know what anybody's doing. Now, I think that if you like this, you probably like it because you really liked those conversations between the characters, those like very psychological conversations that they're all having, and like there's obvious chemistry, both sexual and otherwise, between lots of these different characters, minus Reyna, who again was barely there. I just don't understand the underutilization of Reyna at all, especially because in passing towards the end it gets mentioned that her power is sort of sucking the life from her, and the plants, if I understood this correctly, the plants are like, yes, mother, they call her mother, use us. And the reason why she's sort of like, ugh, towards them the entire book is because they will suck the life out of her, which I guess probably is a commentary on actual motherhood. I don't know. Again, it was super underutilized, so I don't really know what we were doing. So I always struggle with dark academia. I've noticed, like, I think I gave Vita Nostra like a 2. Just feel like if you're not going to make it so that I understand it, I don't really know what the point was. And again, if you liked this and you did understand all of the science behind the magic and stuff, that is awesome, and I'm happy for you. I can't relate. I feel like so much of this was just not done. It was just sort of there to, I don't know, you ever go to a buffet and they line all of their dishes with another vegetable, like kale, and you're like, what is the kale doing there if not to be eaten? Why are we just using food to decorate food? What is the point? That's sort of how I felt reading this. What is the point? If I can't eat it, what's the point? So I found a lot of this really frustrating. I can't help but harken back to my reading experience with Babel, because I loved Babel. I understood the science there, and I also really loved the conversation that we were having on classism and racism and the intersect there. Now, Babel does have like very valid critiques that people have made of it. I'm not saying like it's a perfect book, you can't complain about it. You absolutely can. One of my friends has a review down below I will leave that I think you should watch. But as a dark academia, it really worked for me in a way that Ninth House, Vita Nostra, and this are not really working for me. Oh, and this one by Victoria Lee, it was okay. But Ninth House was racist. Babel, I feel like, is the only one that I've given 5 stars that I can recall. And I wish that there were more of these. I can see how this book, Atlas 6, is smart. I just think that it's sometimes like smart in a surface level way, where it's like being the kale on the buffet. I can't really do anything with it. I'm not getting anything out of it being there. I'm not learning anything, and I'm also not applying this knowledge to like the rest of the book because I don't know what's relevant and what's not. A lot of this just feels like excess. Again, it goes back to the question, what am I supposed to care about here? Okay, I'm back to finish this. And Carlos's shirt. This is so comfortable. I'm never giving it back. Don't any of you tell him I took it. I originally was tandem reading the audio version of this book and the ebook of the self-published version of this book. And very quickly I realized that that is not conducive to a proper reading experience of this book. Sometimes I would say 9 times out of 10, when a book is taken from self-published and put into traditional publishing, and I can name you several times that this happened, The Night and Its Moon, Gothicana, most things are not changed. Everything is mostly exactly the same as it was. Not here though. That is not the experience here. The ebook of the self-published version and the ebook of the Tor published version are very different. In fact, the length is significantly longer, at least according to my Kindle. So if you tried reading it before it was published by Tor, maybe try again because they are quite different. There is a lot added. That being said, maybe don't bother because despite more being added in what culminated, wow, that took a while, into a 16-hour long audiobook, nothing happened. Nothing happened in this book, to be honest with you. And the longer I sit with it, the more annoyed I get about that. I need to give you some background info before I give you the beat by beat of the story, which is basically nothing, but I'll give it to you anyway. Oh, by the way, I found out that this is getting an on-screen adaptation. And again, I don't know how they're going to make a movie in a book where nothing happened. Our 6 main characters, as well as a few other important is used nicely here by me. That is a nice way to put it. So our 6 main characters, as well as some other POVs we get, are Medians, which basically in this world means magicians. This is set in a version of our world, so like, you know, the Library of Alexandria, New York, London, all these things exist. But it's our world with magic. Magic is not a secret. There are universities for people who are magical. In this version of our world, the Library of Alexandria is not burned and lost. Now the library is a magical library, and it is owned by the Alexandrian Society, who do not share it. They are a secret elite society. What they do beyond own this library and have people join them by getting a group of 6 and then killing off one person in order to suck the magic out of that person to then fuel the library further. I don't know what they do beyond that, to be honest with you. Every 10 years, 6 people go into this competition, which is, again, me being nice about describing it. They live at the Alexandria Society mansion house for a year, and then they're charged with killing one of them, which they don't know going into it, otherwise they wouldn't do it in the first place. And they're also charged with, while they're living there, using their unique capabilities to protect the house from being attacked by outside interests. And they're there for a year, then they have to eliminate a person, and then I don't really remember or know what happens after that. It wasn't super talked about, which is kind of the theme here. I think you're getting the idea now, right? So what is the program? Who's to say? Certainly not the book itself. The learning portion of this is mostly stated in passing or in retrospect, mostly, which was very disappointing. I loved the classes in Babel by R.F. Kuang. I felt like I learned something in Babel, particularly about language and the magic of language and language as a tool used to subjugate people. Here we did not have any of those moments for me where I'm highlighting the text thinking, wow, learning can be fun. This book took more of an approach where it waxed poetic poetic about ideas like hunger and what it means to starve and luck versus unluck and everything existing on a spectrum. But these are explored for a paragraph or two in very verbose language, and it does basically nothing for the reading experience. Whereas when I read Babel, I felt very much that the academic part was lending itself to understanding the magical part and lending itself to understanding the characters. And I never felt like anything in Babel was excess. It didn't feel like it had any fat we needed to trim off of it. Everything in Babel felt like parts of a whole of a machine, whereas in Atlas 6 it felt more like everything was very abstract. This is very much a book about and for people who love vibes. And I'm not looking for vibes. I want meat. I want to sink my teeth into something. When I'm reading dark academia, I want to chew. And Atlas 6 gave me air to chew on. Oh, maybe I actually understand now why it was talking about what it means to starve. The book purposely starved me of plot and world building. I really can't describe to you how anything in this world works at all. How does the magic work? Unsure. There are people, they can do magical things. There are categories and subcategories, I think. I don't know what they all are. What are the limits of power? No idea. If the book explained any of these things, it was one line and then you never hear about it again. They say some kinds of magic are really rare. I don't know what the extent of that is, but the Alexandrian Society only recruits the rarest and the best, obviously. So I will just explain what I do know, and that is our characters and what powers they have. So I'll just explain to you the players in this. There's character art in the book, so I'll just use that and we'll go one by one. Okay, Libby Rhodes is a 22-year-old who at the beginning has just graduated from New York University for Magical Arts, also known as NYUMA, where she attended and had classes with and had a rivalry with a guy named Nico de Verona, who has the exact same power as her. They are both physicists, which, to be honest, whatever you're thinking is probably wrong. I don't really know how to explain what it means to be a magical physicist because the book didn't explain it until towards the end, by which I realized, oh, actually, it doesn't really matter to the book whether or not I understand what a magical physicist is. Great! If I try to explain it, I guess I'd say that they manipulate matter, but I don't know the extent of this. It's sort of used conveniently whenever the author needs to have matter be manipulated. But Libby and Nico are extremely powerful physicists who hate each other. Libby has a boyfriend named Ezra Fowler who hates Nico de Verona. Nico de Verona thinks of Ezra Fowler as a bumbling, annoying idiot. There's obvious tension between Libby and Nico, and I thought that that would pan out in this book. It did not. Nowhere in this book did any of the relationships go where I thought that they were going. I just, at the end, sort of felt like the author led us on several wild goose chases. And again, I do not like wild geese. Libby had a sister who died young, and it gets mentioned several times, and like the question is, could magic have saved her sister? And the answer is no, and I don't know why that was important or why we even talked about it in all of the 2 times we talked about it. Again, just threads leading off to nowhere over and over again is sort of the whole thing that this book did the entire time. Libby and Nico get approached by their graduation by a man named Atlas Blakely, who says he wants to have both of them come compete for a chance to join a secret society that will, what do secret societies always offer? Power. Exactly. Okay, we're moving on. He's not very forthcoming on the details. Libby's an extremely anxious person who annoys everyone around her, but is also very powerful. I don't know why she was written to annoy everyone around her. It was just a thing that happened. I didn't feel like it was done well. And then later she rises from the ashes and she's less annoying. And I'm like, wow, this was a thing that we did, I guess. Nico de Verona, on the other hand, is very arrogant. He's very charming, very self-assured, where Libby is absolutely not. And they're sort of seen as parts of a whole, twin flame kind of deal. But the most interesting thing about Nico isn't Nico. The most interesting thing about Nico is his best friend Gideon, who is so underutilized, it's criminal, actually. I'm issuing an arrest warrant. Nico wants to join the society in a big way because he wants to learn better how to protect his best friend / roommate, Gideon. Nico lived with Gideon during his time at NYUMA, and Gideon can't really interact with society because Gideon isn't human. So he can't get a job and stuff, but I think he went to NYUMA. I don't know. It's confusing. And the reason why Gideon is not human is because he was born to Aleph, who's a mermaid, and some satyr somewhere. And because of his parentage, has the ability to walk into people's dreams and interact with people in their dreams. And so him and Nico do this throughout the book, when they are separated because Nico has to live at the society for a year, the way that they communicate is in dreamland. And Aleph, the Gideon's mermaid mom, is sort of evil and has what the book refers to as a sort of magical gambling problem. I'm just going to leave it at that because even that was confusing, and that's the only way I'm going to, it's just easier if I leave it at that. So she uses Gideon for jobs to meet her own ends. So Nico's motivation is to protect Gideon from Aleph, Gideon's own mom, and also anyone who would want to cause harm to Gideon. And again, that is the most interesting thing about Nico, is his best friend Gideon. Also though, I feel like there was some tension thrown in sort of at the end where I'm like, oh, so do they like each other? Which, like, fine. I just wish that we had talked about this earlier. Again, that's the running theme of my reading experience with this book. Reina Mori is a 25, I think, year old from Japan. She has plant magic, which in this world is called being a naturalist. Plants talk to her. They call her mother. She seems to dislike her magic, and later Callum is another main character. Callum sort of hints that it is draining of Reina's life to use her magic. This doesn't pan out in the end. We don't do anything with this. She went to the Osaka Institute of Magic, but she didn't study magic. She studied classics. She agrees to compete and like join the society only because she's really interested in gaining access to their library. Like, that's how Atlas Blakely convinces her to even show up, is access to these texts that you seem really interested in reading about. And she's mostly ambivalent towards the other 5 except Parisa, who she fucking hates. Parisa Kamali is an I don't know how old, again, let's just call her 25-year-old. She is Iranian. She is very beautiful. She can read minds. She is a telepath and a very skilled telepath. Parisa was forced to marry an older man, I believe by her brother, who was not nice to her. She was abused, I think, by her husband or her brother. I can't remember which. She ran away from her family and her husband. She ran away to Paris. She changed her name. She uses her telepathy to sort of manipulate people, and also uses like sex to meet her own ends. I'm not sure if this representation was done well or not. I'm not really sure. I'm not a sex worker. I'm not Iranian. I don't really know. If you've read the book and you are either or both of those things and have thoughts on them, you're welcome to leave them below. The way her telepathy is described is really interesting, though. I did really like it. That was one of the things I actually genuinely enjoyed about the book, and we do spend quite a bit of time on it, is that she's understanding more than just what a person is thinking. It's not just like, I think the line, I like cake, and Parisa can see or hear me say, I like cake. She really understands the subconscious. She's sort of like a spider who like intimately knows the web, but in this case, the web is other person's brains. People can block her out, though I don't know how they do this, how they learn to do this, or how much they can do it, like to what degree. This is one of many magical things that just gets like hand waved in this book. She uses seduction, as I said, to get information from people that she can't just get directly out of their head. Parisa strikes up a sexual relationship with Dalton, who is the researcher. So basically he teaches them stuff. He works for the society. And she also strikes up a sexual relationship with Tristan and a friendship. Tristan is another competitor. Tristan Kane is a British guy who has the power to see illusions. Not see through them, but see that something is illusion. If you are looking at my hand and I have my hand illusioned to look like I'm wearing a sock puppet on my hand, you would see the sock puppet. Now Tristan would just see my hand and see like something to alert him that an illusion is happening, but he would not see the sock puppet. Tristan is described several times as like exceedingly misanthropic, thinking that human beings are just the worst and they're all so shitty to each other. His father is some sort of magical crime lord, and he also was involved in a powerful company. The owner's daughter, he was engaged to, but she's cheating on him with his best friend and everybody sucks. That's how Tristan is introduced to us at the beginning of the book. And this backstory is basically meaningless because it's meaningless in this plotless book. Despite being misanthropic to like a degree that other people are pointing this out to him consistently, Tristan simultaneously attaches himself to people, specifically people who are shitty, like Parisa, but also someone that Parisa fears, and that is is Callum. I don't understand why Tristan got attached to Callum. I don't even know when this happened because it all happened off page. And someone who I definitely don't feel like I have a full grasp on their magic is Callum Nova, which is a ridiculous name in my opinion. Callum Nova is a South African guy who's an arrogant piece of shit who doesn't seem to care about anything and rivals Parisa in manipulating others because Callum can literally manipulate people's minds. Now, I don't, again, have a real good understanding of this. Is it that he's leveling out their emotions? Is it that he's making them see things, feel things, think things? I don't really know. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I don't know. He's called an empath, a magical empath. Again, I don't know the full extent of this. I don't understand it. I can tell you some stuff that he did, but I can't really explain to you, okay, well then why didn't he do this in this other scenario? I don't know. At one point, the house is attacked very early on in them staying there, and he convinces the attacker to end their own life. He and Tristan have something between them. I don't know what it is exactly. It might be romantic. It might be sexual. Most of the people in this book are queer, so it could be that something happens with them later. It doesn't happen in this book, and I don't understand their connection because, again, it all happened off page. Tristan seems to want to trust Callum, and Callum manipulates Tristan and loses his trust but is, sort of flippant about it. That's basically like the whole sum of what Callum does in this book. He, like Raina, feels like a complete waste. Those are the major POVs you get, but there's a couple others which I'll come back to because it's sort of like, I don't want to call it a spoilery because again, that's a really nice way to put it. But even amongst the 6 major POVs, some POVs feel like they were not carrying the weight the way that others were. I feel like Parisa was carrying most of this book and she still wasn't fully carrying it. By the end, it felt like nobody carried the weight at all because it was so plotless. So all the stuff that we were doing, all these like threads and pathways that we were, branching off onto led absolutely nowhere by the end. Like it's not like we had like several different paths and then they all culminated at the end, right? It all comes together. There was no it all comes together moment at all. Just a bunch of paths leading us to nowhere rather than leading us to a destination, let alone a satisfying destination. So there's a couple other characters that you do need to know about. Keep in mind Ezra, which is Libby's boyfriend at Naima. He hates Nico. He's annoyed through most of the first 75% of this book. He has, I don't even remember what he was described as looking like, being like, doing in the beginning of this book other than he Libby boyfriend. He no like Nico. Ta-da. And he comes up maybe twice until 75% of the way through the book because he's getting annoyed that Libby won't tell him anything about the secret society. That happens maybe twice, and then that's it. Until 75%, which we'll come back to. Then you have Dalton, the Alexandria Society's researcher. There are many researchers. He's one of them. He interacts with the 6 of them and can't answer all of their questions, leads classes, but I don't know what he taught or why it was relevant. And Parisa sleeps with him in order to get info out of him about the society. He's an animator, which I don't really know what that means. Sometimes it kind of sounded like it was necromancy, which would have been cool, but again, you can't trust this book to do literally anything. And then other times it seems like animator meant if something is illusioned, he can bring that illusion to life. I don't know. Don't ask me. I just read the book. Why would I have all the answers? He never uses his powers, so I don't fucking know. And above him in hierarchy, I think, in the society is Atlas Blakely, who recruited them to compete. Above caretaker in the society, because Atlas is caretaker, Dalton is researcher. So above caretaker is the council of the society, who we never see. Atlas Blakely is a telepath. I don't know to what degree. Another thing just sort of mentioned a couple times and not really done anything with. Because of so much of what happens here is not actually happening, it's happening off page and then mentioned later, and in a 16-hour audiobook that is awful. It really felt like being told third hand a story. You left out a ton of details and yet you took so long doing it. So what did occur, I will try to explain. The 6 of them are recruited. They show up to this mansion, which is also the library, I guess. It moves location throughout the decades. They are told by Dalton and Atlas that they will slowly be given information and knowledge, like incrementally they will be given information and knowledge about the society, like in stages. I didn't feel like this ever actually happened, but okay. The library itself is magical and gives them books, but they can request things and the library can be like, No. They're told that they will have to maintain the security of their house, the house mansion library thing that they're living in. So they are charged with using like their wits and their powers in order to maintain the house's security. Because obviously this is the Library of Alexandria, right? So people who don't have access will want access. Shit, I would consider breaking into that shit too, just to see it. And almost immediately, Reyna realizes that someone is in fact trying to break into the house. So they do end up splitting into teams to take on the threat to the house. The people breaking into the house are from a group called the Forum, which is sort of a rivalry to the Alexandrian Society. The Forum sent in very powerful illusionists who get taken out almost immediately. What a waste, yet again. Nico and Reyna team up. Tristan and Libby team up. They get rid of one of the illusionists. Parisa sees Callum manipulate one of the illusionists into taking their own life, turning the gun on themselves. This terrifies Parisa. Parisa ends up striking up a sexual relationship with Tristan, but also Dalton. While fooling around with Dalton, she's in his head, and this is where she uncovers that when the society says that you have to eliminate someone, they mean in the literal sense, not in the voting them off the island sense. Parisa, as the book goes on, becomes like more and more uncomfortable with Callum. She can tell that he's manipulating Tristan with his empath powers, but she doesn't understand what Callum's motivations are as a whole. And you know what? Bitch, same. I don't even understand to what degree he was manipulating Tristan. Sometimes other people are at the house, or at the library at least, both, I don't know, from the society. I don't know how this shit fucking works. And if I were to be honest, I don't even think fans of the book could like sufficiently explain this to me, because the book doesn't really explain much. But anyways, other people who are former researchers show up from time to time, or former, I don't know, they're part of the society doing shit that gets hand waved. And in a rare Reyna chapter, she goes and talks to a woman, Aya, who never comes up again after this, but is part of the society. If this conversation hadn't been written about in my notes by me, I would have forgotten it happened entirely. Aya explains to Reyna when she asks about Dalton, because they were in the same class. She's like, well, I don't really understand why Dalton is still here doing work as a researcher. So Reyna's trying to figure out how the society works, basically. That's all of them are doing all the time, is trying to figure out, how does the society work? What is this place? What are we doing? What will we be doing? And then she finds out that caretakers like Atlas are appointed by the society. Okay, cool. I could have guessed that on my own. I don't know why this conversation was needed. Whatever it's relevant to didn't come up again. Tristan, who like everyone else thinks Libby is overly anxious and annoying. I feel like we were basically told to think that, even though when we're in Libby's POV, I did not feel that way about her at all. I don't know, maybe her and I just have too much in common. But he decides to work with Libby academically. I don't really know why they work together on academics when the society doesn't really like test them on any of this, or have them do any sort of academic competition, or do any sort of work, make anything for the society. I don't know. But nonetheless, Tristan and Libby have a conversation about time as its own form of magic, and with their powers combined, they can maybe stop time. Don't ask me how to explain. Don't ask me about explaining any of this. I literally can't. Something along the lines of Tristan is able to see time, at which Libby like pointed out to him, hey, I think that time is something that you're able to see because you're able to see illusions. And if he tells her what time appears as, like, because he can see things in a way that other people can't, then she can manipulate it, I think. Nico is ambushed in a bathroom at the mansion house library thing by his non-human friend Gideon's mermaid mother. Wow, what a sentence. Now, she shouldn't have been able to get in, and he realizes that there is a magical creature loophole allowing her to get in, which I don't know how in the however long this society has been running, that's never happened before, but okay, sure. She demands access to her son, and Nico's like, absolutely not, you can fuck off. Nico takes it upon himself to try to close this loophole so that magical creatures cannot enter the house, though fixing it is going to basically magically burn him out. And instead of just asking for help about this, he snaps at Libby over it. He's like, we're not friends. Bitch, you don't need to be friends. You just need to work together to close the loophole. Why don't you want to tell her about it? Just say, hey, I figured out that magical creatures could get through this bitch, and just be like, can you help me close it so I don't know, fucking die? This whole scene felt so anticlimactic and dramatic for no reason. hey, a mermaid got in. Let's fix this loophole together. Why not just say that? Why did we go through all of these fucking loops and hoops and nonsense? All these dramatics. We're not friends, Libby. Okay, I'm not friends with my neighbor, but if our gate is broken, I'm gonna be like, hey, can we fix this shit real quick? Parisa tells Dalton, hey, I know y'all expect us to kill one of the 6. He's like, yes, fascinating. Also, I would like to test your telepath power since you were able to pull that out of my brain. He's really interested in how she's able to telepathically retrieve information. He says, I propose a test. Okay, I'm gonna try to lock something away in my brain and I want you to try to find it. So she comes upon what she thinks is the test. She sees like a version of Dalton locked in a tower inside his own mind. Maybe he just wants to be a princess and be rescued. Maybe that's the secret. It's not. That would have been more fun, to be honest. I don't even know what happened. I don't even know how to describe this to you. She sees Atlas telling Dalton he has to be the one to survive. She's sort of forcibly removed by or kicked out of Dalton's brain, but not by him. She thinks that Atlas kicked her out of Dalton's brain. And remember, Atlas is a form of a telepath. So then she comes back to like herself and she's like, oh, so, you know, I got it. I think I might have seen something. And he's like, you never started the test. And so she's asking herself, what did I just come across in his mind if that wasn't the test? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. And you know what? I finished the book and I'm still confused. Everyone gets to leave for Christmas. How festive. How long have we been here? I don't fucking know. I don't know how long we've been in the house. By the time it rolled around, they were like, we've been here a year. I'm like, we were? When? Since when? We've been here a year? Nothing has happened. I thought we were here for a week. What have we been doing all this time? Who's to say? Certainly not the book. Raina is alone in London during Christmas, and a man from the Forum, which again is the rival society to the Alexandrian Society, comes to talk to her and tells her that if she wants, she will have a place at the Forum if she wants to abandon ship. He's like, the Alexandrian Society is undemocratic and believes itself to be so benevolent and doing right by keeping knowledge, but they are tyrannical. And I'm like, yes, cool. Maybe this will be the plot. It is not. We do not have a conversation on the classism of the Alexandrian Society, actually. But at this point, my interest was back in the book, and then I was really pissed when that did not pan out. During, again, Christmas break, someone from the Forum, comes and talks to all of them, right? So when they come and talk to Libby, we don't see the conversation. We see her ending the conversation, and then Ezra getting mad at her for not telling her what's going on with the society. And she's like, you don't own me, Ezra. I'm not yours. So she hands back to the Alexandrian house, library, mansion, whatever, and Tristan and Parisa are already there. All of them discuss being approached by the Forum. Parisa's like, yeah, they sort of attempted to blackmail me because of my previous affairs. Parisa and Tristan invite Libby to drink with them, which is shocking because they find her so annoying. And they talk openly about Parisa's different affairs and her work as a sex worker, as sort of like an escort. And Libby's like, how can Tristan feel so comfortable talking about this? Because he's so into Parisa. And Parisa's like, oh, he's so jaded about humanity. He could be stabbed mid-climax and he'd yell out, I was right. And that was really funny, except I don't understand if that's how he really feels, then why is he so shocked that manipulative Callum manipulated him? What? Then they have a threesome. Yeah, which good for them. It's just all of this, again, feels like it came out of nowhere. And because of this threesome, Libby finally feels like she cannot worry about things and just feel. This ends up changing how Tristan feels about Libby, where now he has feelings for her and she just sees it as this was a thing that we did and now I have risen like a phoenix from my own ashes. I am no longer annoying. And Parisa is Parisa. And at this point, all of them, not just Parisa, know that the elimination is actually a murder, except Libby. She's the only one that does not know, hasn't figured it out, and nobody has told her. So they just continue to keep it from her for no reason. Parisa discusses the visits from the Forum with Callum, and she asks, did you kill the person who visited you? And he said, well, their feelings are their own. They might die later, but that's not my fault. Basically insinuating that he did manipulate them and they might indeed take their own life later, and he accepts no responsibility for this. Parisa hates Callum. He thinks they're pretty much the same. She resents against this, which is interesting as a concept, but by the end, we don't do anything substantial with this either. So what was the point? The only substantial part we did here in this book is right at this moment where they sort of have like a face-off. So Parisa and Callum play a game to see like who between us is the stronger mind manipulator. Callum sees that Parisa had a husband and changed her name somehow and sort of lives like on the run from what had happened to her. Callum manipulates Parisa into jumping off the balcony. However, it's revealed that all of this is happening inside of Nico's head. And Parisa is the one who made it all happen in Nico's head, but they all saw it. How does this work? I don't know. Why are you asking me? I don't know how any of this works. This is like a recurring nightmare I have where I'm a surgeon and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot. Yes, I did go to medical school. You're right. And I do have surgery today. And why can't I recall a single thing that I learned in medical school? For Christ's sake, I'm a doctor. That's what reading this felt like. And I get that this was great for like Parisa's case, however the fuck we made this happen, because she makes Callum's like insidiousness known to everyone by doing this. So now she has a good case for saying, we should get rid of Callum. He's the bad one. They have to take somebody out, might as well be Callum. But like this could have been the climax of the book and it absolutely was not. And first they have to tell Libby anyways that one of them has to die. So when she does find out, she is appalled by this because she was made out to be the young, naive, annoying one. She's livid with everyone for keeping this from her. But also I don't really understand how any of them got the idea that this super secretive society that was giving them super secret access to the super secret library would just let anybody live after accessing it and then leave. Like y'all thought this was The Bachelor, that you would just go home? We are interrupted in the narrative with a POV from Libby's boyfriend Ezra, about 75%, 80%, I don't fucking know, through the book. 74%. An interlude. Most people don't know how to starve, said Ezra. Silence. I guess that's a weird thing to say, but it's true. It's something you learn. People think they have to be born one way with resilience built in or some incapacity to burn or whatever. Either you are or you aren't, that sort of thing. Like some people naturally want things and others want nothing, but it's not true. You can be taught to want, you can be taught to crave, and you can also learn to starve. Silence. The issue is when you eventually get fed. You never forget it, how to starve, how to watch others with envy, how to silence the ache in your soul. Starvation is dormancy, isn't it? The mind still hungers even when the body adjusts. There's tension, always. Survival only requires so much, but existence, completion, that becomes insatiable. The longer you starve, the more haunting the ghost of starvation. After you've learned to starve, when someone finally gives you something, you become a hoarder. You hoard. And technically that's the same as having, but it isn't, not really. Starvation continues. You still want, and wanting is the hard part. You can learn to starve, but you can't learn how to have. Great. Thank you so much for all those words. Whoever he's talking to, still silent. It just says silence. Being magic is even worse. Your body doesn't want to die. It has too much inside it. So you want more powerfully. You starve more quickly. Your capacity to have nothing is abysmal, cataclysmic. There isn't a Median on earth capable of casting themselves down to ordinariness, much less to dust. We're all starving, but not everyone is doing it correctly. Some people are taking too much, making themselves sick, and it kills them. The excess is poison. Even food is a poison to someone who's been deprived. Everything has the capacity to turn toxic. Wow, we're doing a lot more words. I'm real happy I'm here for all these words. We fight it, trying to starve well or starve cleverly, but it comes for us eventually. We all have different reasons for wanting, but inevitably it comes. What does? Asked Atlas Blakely. Ezra smiled, closing his eyes in the sun. Power, he said, a little at a time until we break. Cool, great. So Ezra is knowing, has met Atlas. That's what we know so far, right? Ezra, the boring boyfriend who's mad, is some reason interacting with Atlas Blakely, caretaker of the Alexandrian Society. And we get all those fucking words to tell us that about starving. Back at the house, they decide that Callum should be the one who dies because he bad. And Tristan is voluntold that he needs to be the one to do it because Callum and him have some kind of connection in a way that I don't understand. It makes no sense to the character of Tristan, but okay. And also feels like it entirely happened off page. Great! Callum knows this because of course he does. And so they have this conversation in this long ass chapter that gives us so much information on Callum's idea about villains that is completely unnecessary for me funny to read. Tristan, of course, can't kill Callum because despite being misanthropic, he just doesn't think he can do it. Callum almost kills Tristan instead, and they are interrupted by a scream. Whose scream? That would be Libby's. Libby goes into her room, and she is kidnapped. She is taken. She just disappears from her room. She senses them before they are there, and in a later chapter, someone somehow senses that it was a betrayal. That the last thing she felt before she disappeared was betrayal. And I'm like, okay, so the only person that is not in the circle of like who Libby knows, that is outside of the room right now, right, is Ezra. So obviously the person to betray her is Ezra, right? So they see Libby's body on the floor, but Tristan says, no, something's wrong here. I don't know what you guys are seeing. I assume you're seeing Libby's body, but what I'm seeing is some illusion, and I don't understand how this was done, and it doesn't get explained how it was done, but it's like it's Libby's body, but it's just a little bit off. So they don't know where the real Libby is. Everyone goes looking for her, including like the society gets called in some capacity to come look for her, but we don't actually see them. Meanwhile, the group is like told that there was this woman whose body they are looking at, her dead body, and they're like, this is the body of a woman who had the ability to not age, and I don't know why this was relevant. Again, it's just a pathway to fucking nowhere. That was her power, to not age, I guess. We didn't do anything with this. I don't know why we needed to be here for that. But if I had to read it with my eyeballs, I'm gonna tell it to you. So they don't know where the fuck Libby is. They all sort of give up. And since she's gone, the society's like, well, we'll just allow that to be enough. Turns out, of course, she was betrayed. Who's the only person that Libby has in her life besides, the Atlas 6? Ezra, her ex-boyfriend. Turns out she's with Ezra, and Ezra is a Median who can move throughout time. He can pop around throughout time. He's a time traveler. He's his own personal TARDIS. And the reason that they can't find Libby is because, assumedly, she's in a different time because Ezra took her there. Because Ezra and Atlas have been working together for years. Ezra and Atlas were initiates together. They faked Ezra's death so that Atlas can rise through the ranks of the society so that he can take it down. Something big bang. I don't know. But Ezra and Atlas had a conversation where he felt like Atlas was starting to get, sort of murdery, and they didn't have the same goals or the same ways to achieve those goals anymore. So he stole Libby away to protect her from Atlas. Gideon, remember him? Yeah, you probably forgot. Again, irrelevant. Gideon shows up and talks to Nico, and he's like, my mom told me where you were. So I heard about Libby, and I'm taking jobs on from my mom. I know you hate it, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm a grown-ass non-human, and I'm going to help you find Libby. And there's some tension there. I guess. I don't know. So Libby's away out of time. She is technically the death, so they move on. They are, I guess now they're going to move throughout the society. Callum's still alive. I don't know what his motivations are. I don't know what the fuck Raina's doing. Nico's sad because Gideon is working with his dangerous gambling mermaid mom. Libby's in a different part of time. Atlas bad. I don't know what the fuck's going on with Dalton. The end? I really don't know what the fucking point of this was. I think there were concepts of a plan. I don't think that any of those concepts were executed. It's not plot focused, so it should be character focused, right? Except that never occurred either. Not only did all these characters not have character arcs, except maybe with the exception of Libby, the majority of them started blending together within the narrative. Who I was told that they were in their opening chapters doesn't feel like who they are in their later chapters, with the exception of Parisa and Nico. And it's not because they changed in a normal way due to circumstances that we observed them changing due to. It's just suddenly they were different than who we were told they were. Tristan especially feels this way. He's jaded. He's so misanthropic. Okay, then why does he feel so drawn to Callum? Why is he so upset when a known master manipulator manipulates him? What do you mean? He thinks people all suck. Of course a master manipulator would suck the most. I thought you were used to being let down by others, Mr. Misanthrope. The heck happened there? In other cases, characters are so underutilized as to be pointless. Raina should have played a much bigger part. Nico should have played a much bigger part. Dalton should have played a much bigger part. Atlas himself, I'll get back to that. I mean, Dalton felt set up bait for follow-up books, But okay, Atlas being a big bad, there's really no reason why we couldn't have had POVs earlier on without us knowing who it was, like that it was Atlas, that it was Ezra, hinting at this. It came out of nowhere, and that's not a twist. That's not a fair way to write a twist. It's like being told that you're going to watch a movie and you watch an incredibly boring 2-hour-long documentary about a car salesman, and you learn all about how he sells cars and the cars that he sells and who's he selling them to and how much money they're making off these cars, and going and talking to a mechanic when one of the cars breaks down and there's a busted headlight and we have to fix that. And then in the last 15 minutes of this car salesman documentary, you find out that the whole time the car salesman has been a murderer, murdering people that never came on the page or the screen. And there's no time to get to spend with the murder bit. What was the point of doing it this way? What was the point? Did we really get the most out of this idea? Because it feels cheap. In the case of Ezra, it feels less cheap than Atlas, but cheap nonetheless. Like, it feels like Walmart quality instead of, behind a gas station quality. Because by the time we introduce this idea that Ezra is not who we have been told he is, and that he and Atlas know each other very well and had this long-term plan, it's so late in this 16-hour audiobook. But not only is it late, this scene that I read for you is tedious as fuck, talking about what it means to starve. That by the time we get to the end of this fucking chapter and we reveal it's Atlas that he's been talking to, it feels like a nothing burger. I don't even care at this point. I just wanted to get it over with. The one who truly knew starvation there was me. So if the characters weren't the point, what was the point? The writing? The writing is something. Let me read to you a little, like one sentence to give you an idea of how I knew this writing was super not for me. A flaw of humanity, the compulsion to be unique, which is at war with the desire to belong to a single identifiable sameness. Every line is like this, and sometimes it felt interesting, but it didn't feel like it were like bringing my attention to colors that I had never known existed before, which is the way I feel about Laini Taylor's writing. This, in a lot of passages, felt like it was doing the thing that the Night in Its Moon did, where we're trying very hard to use as many words as possible to describe something very simple and uninspired. People want to be unique, but not too unique so that they don't fit in with each other, is all that sentence was saying. It's not that deep. And bringing together both the issues I have with the characters and the writing style, I have to point out this very frustrating habit that this book had. And I think that it was like a way to try to make the book and the characters sound smart. And in the end, I was so sick of it, I wanted to throw my phone across the room. So this is a way that every character started to feel the same and the writing started to feel ridiculous at the same time, where we'd be having a conversation ongoing and disrupt the conversation with a random question that had nothing to do with what we were talking about between these 2 or 3 people. Now, this would have been fine if it was just one person doing it, just Callum doing it, just Parisa doing it, but it's Callum and Parisa and Dalton and on and on. And I think, again, it was an attempt to make these people seem smart and pretentious and give off this vibe that's like very specific. But there were other ways we could have found to make them intelligent and make it distinct to the particular people. Instead, now they're like unable to be differentiated from each other. And if there's no plot, not super enjoyable writing, like it's not the worst I've ever seen, it's just so wordy for no payoff. And characters that are either underutilized or starting to all blend together or both. What is the point? I can't survive a reading experience on vibes alone, and that is what this felt like. So that is my feelings on Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I didn't like this. I'll give it a 2. I don't like it. It had concepts of a plan. I could have liked it if we had done anything. So that's it. That's my thoughts on Atlas 6. Let me know your thoughts below if you made it this far into the video. Leave some sort of plant emoji down below on behalf of Reyna, who should have been on page more, and her plant magic. Man, I would have loved to see more of that. That sucks that didn't happen. So leave a plant down below for Reyna. There will be more Reyna in my comment section than there was in the frickin' book. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Comments and questions down below. Let me know if you read this and what your thoughts were on it, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astra, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Cami, Choco's traumatized by that dang book, Chris the Horror Therapist, DJ Rocktopus, EK Casey, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, Hey Mom I'm Famous, Jess, John E, K, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max B, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, Ree, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph, T Delegati, 2 Orbit, Umami Mommy, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxist patrons. Wow, that's a mouthful. And those are AB Daniels Anaki, Alejandra, Ali Oxenfree, Alistair Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Armadildo. That's a good one. Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe Lavender, Bookish Brainrot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree Caitlin, Kate B, Caitlin P, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate, Catherine, Kathy, Claire Online, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle M, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorian, Dorothea, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Other Emma, Ezra Moon, Fiona McDonald, Forever a Boat, Francis Gadarn, Galaxy Bot, Halia Artisan, Hannah Bunny, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, JM Tennant, Jays on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kat, Catherine, Katie L, Katrina, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Luciri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Molly, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca R, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Secoria, Saint Bringer, Saki Alume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That Nerdy Mystic, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Trash Can Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, Wobbs. If you don't tell me how to say that, I'm gonna cry. And Writer A, thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.